Okay, welcome to the quickest live in Pensar basketball history. This is going to be a fast one. This is going to be stats. This is going to be two-game overview. Please do not take anything that I'm saying too seriously and to heart. Obviously, 2 games is a very small sample size, but I do want to poke some holes in this theory that the Raptors cannot shoot, that the Raptors offense is doomed, et cetera, et cetera. Look, there are some players who are struggling 2 games in. Please understand, small sample size. But there's a little bit of context behind what is happening on the basketball court. And look, when we're watching the game, it's all happening live action. You need to go to the film. You need to understand what's happening. I promise you, after tonight's game against the Philadelphia 76ers, I will go through the first 3 games. I will go through the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Chicago Bulls, and tonight's game, and I'll pluck out some trends. I'll see what's happening with this half-court offense. Thus far into the season, the Raptors are on historic pace in terms of the inefficiency of their half-court offense. They just can't find points in the half-court. The only hope that this team has is 2 things. Number 1, transition. They've been pretty good in transition, not efficient in transition, but prolific in the transition. And everything that they're getting in transition is coming from their league best defense right now. So they talked about being a top 5 defensive team. So far, so good. On track. Scottie Barnes, OG Anunoby have been like Kawhi Leonard defensively, like peak Kawhi Leonard. This is exactly what having 2 Kawhi Leonards is like. Can they sustain this? No, it's not possible. For an entire season, you cannot expect this type of thing from them. So there have been some things that are positively unsustainable, and there are some things that are negatively unsustainable. So ahead of tonight's game, while these ideas are still fresh, I do want to talk about this 0.5 offense, what's going wrong, what's going right for the Toronto Raptors, and we're going to flash some stats. So we're 2 minutes in. Hopefully some people have had some time, but I don't want to make this live like super long. People complain like, hey, Rob, I love those Pensar basketball videos that used to be 9-10 minutes of quick hitting. I don't have 2 hours to sift through this. Don't worry. This one's not going over 20 minutes. And as I say this, it's going to go to 21 minutes. I have a feeling. Okay, so a lot was made yesterday about Scottie's turnovers. Yes, Scottie Barnes has been pretty turnover prone this year. He is also leading the team in usage, worth noting. So I put out 2 stats. Really, it's not 2 stats, but 2 tweets. And if you're not following Pensar Basketball on Twitter, this is free promo for Pensar Basketball on Twitter/X. Definitely go follow us. So 4 days into the NBA season, we have already seen 3 triple doubles. And ironically, in last year's video on Scottie's greatness and potential greatness, I compared him to Luka Doncic, and Brian Macon, his trainer, went on a Yahoo podcast and compared him to Jokic. Well, so far the company is good. There have been 3 triple doubles in 4 days in the NBA. You know, this used to be a rarity. Triple doubles used to be very rare. They're not so rare with the pace that we're playing at right now. What makes Scottie's triple doubles, in my opinion, way more impressive than the other 2 is the offense in which he's doing it. You have to understand that triple doubles are a byproduct of pace and also offensive efficiency. When your team is scoring so little, for you to have triple doubles is really something that magnifies, because it's always going to be a percentage of, right? If your team has 160 points, because that's how efficient your offense is and that's how bad the defense that you're playing against is, having 30 points is no big deal. Anyone can put up 30 points in a game that 160 points are put on your team. But to be scoring efficiently as Scottie is, to be, playmaking somewhat efficiently as Scottie is, it has been quite impressive to do this in this bad of an offense. And one thing that I will say is, if these are his bad games, the first 2 games, I don't think anyone is trying to sit here and say he had a perfect game against Minnesota, and he didn't have a perfect game last night either. But if these are his bad games, just imagine what the good games are going to be like. On the other end of the spectrum is a player who has really struggled so far into the season. Again, 2-game sample size, man. His numbers are not going to look this bad at the end of the year. I promise you, it would be impossible. He would be the worst player in the league if his numbers stayed this bad. Negative 5.5 box plus minus. That's an 8 point. Oh my God, that's an 8.6 box plus minus swing. 8.6 is the difference between like Scottie Barnes and Kawhi Leonard like last year. I mean, that's not even putting it properly, but that's a really massive swing. Win shares per 48 have dropped by, 3 times, basically. His usage is down by 4%. This is the lowest usage I believe he's had since his 3rd year. Turnover percentage is also up in a sense down. He's turning the ball over on more of his possessions. So despite the lower usage, he's turning the ball over more. His true shooting percentage is down by nearly 10%. So he's been less efficient. His free throw rate is down by 15%. So he's not getting to the line. His total rebounding percentage is down by 2%. And this is the one thing that I really want him to fix. And his assist percentage is down as well, despite, unlocking a more, pass friendly offense. He is not necessarily registering the passes that are resulting in assists. To do a slightly deeper dive onto Siakam's regression here, just take a look at his advanced stats through 2 games. Again, please, God, do not run with this. It's 2 games, okay? In terms of his PER, this is the lowest in his career. In terms of true shooting, lowest in his career. In terms of three-point attempt rate, this is the second highest in his career. The last time he was this high, 33.1%, which was the year that he first became an all-star, which is honestly probably the second best season of his life. That was before the bubble meltdown. But you'll notice that he had a 1.8 box minus that year as well. Tough year, right? 1920 was a tough year in terms of, it was a bit of a mixed bag for Siakam. But he was transitioning to a more shooter, spacer role. And I think, we had mixed results on that. Rebound percentage, lowest of his career. Assist percentage, lowest since he became an all-star. Like the year he became an all-star, every year after that, he's been more of a playmaker. It's lower this year because he has the ball less. Usage percentage, as I said, it's the lowest since Kawhi was here, right? So ever since he was elevated to first option, his usage has pretty much gone down. Like if you draw a trend line through that 28.1% to 23.6%, I don't expect him to stay at 23.6%. But if he continues to be this inefficient, it'll be hard. Win shares per 48, the lowest in his career. This is lower than his rookie season. Box plus minus, lowest since his rookie season. He's on pace for the lowest value of replacement on his rookie season since his rookie season as well. On the flip side, Scottie Barnes, has he made a step? Again, I hope we are all in agreement that these were not 2 good games for Scottie. Okay, he's blocking shots at a rate that he's not going to be able to sustain. But per 100 possessions, he is scoring more. He's turning the ball over way more. His blocks are up. I mean, his rebounding is up. Everything across the board is pretty much up. His 3-point attempts are right around where they were last year. You'd like to see those go up, but he's hit one at least in every game, including a big one last night. He's attempting more shots. He's getting to the line way more than last year. We look at look at the second stats, which is the advanced stats down there. You have his block percentage up, turnover percentage up, usage percentage up, win shares per 48 is up, right? Everything is up. Box plus minus is hovering very close to all-star level. For me, box plus minus, not necessarily the most indicative and correct stat. I prefer estimated plus minus, but for here, just for ease of use and conveyance, because people use Basketball Reference, and Basketball Reference prefers box plus minus for whatever reason. I think EPM is from dunks and threes is a little bit more accurate, but that also agrees that he is having a career year for sure. Yet, offensively, it is a negative offensive box plus minus. So he has not been, his value is being created by godly numbers on defense, really. Again, true shooting percentage. This is right around the Siakam level. 56.7% is right around the Siakam level. That is not where Scottie needs to be. His true shooting percentage needs to be 60-ish for the Raptors offense to work, in my opinion. Let's go to some team stats because these are some emerging trends. And right after that, I'll give you sort of my take on whether the Raptors have the roster to do what they're trying to do. And hopefully once I poke to these stats, you'll have a clearer idea of where I'm going with this as well. So first, just start out simple. How bad are the Raptors at 3-point shooting? They're 18th in the league right now at 3-point shooting in terms of efficiency. So they're shooting 32.4%. And that is by no one's definition super efficient, right? 3-point shooting percentage, like league average last year, I think was 36. So and there are a lot of teams that are struggling. Boston Celtics are not going to stay at 35.9. They're probably going to end up at closer to 37. There are some teams that are just blistering hot right now, and they're not going to be able to sustain it. But for the Raptors to really, let's say, tread water, They need this 32.4% to be at like 34.5 to 35. If they are at 35 at the end of the year, I promise you'll have a good year. 32.5. I mean, so that's the thing. 32.4. That sustainable? Like, is that going to keep up? Are they taking them? Well, here we are on the field goal percentage attempts that are 3-point attempts. So how many shots? Like, this is the ratio argument of how many threes are you taking compared to how many twos? Well, the Cleveland Cavaliers are leading the league in terms of the percentage of field goal attempts that are 3-point attempts, with 47.3% of their field goals attempted that are 3-pointers. That is absurdly high. No surprises here. Sacramento is up there. Boston is up there. Philly is up there. Joel Embiid takes threes. Tobias Harris takes threes. Maxey takes threes. Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks with Kyrie Irving. All these teams have the personnel to be really great 3-point shooting teams, right? The San Antonio Spurs, you have Devin Vassell, you have Victor Wembanyama launching threes. Yes, that kind of makes sense. I expect that number to go down. The Chicago Bulls, that probably won't be this high because DeMar loves to live in the mid-range, but you have Vooch that hits threes. You have Zach LaVine that's hitting threes. You have some 3-point shooters there. You have some gunners, right? The Clippers, no surprise. But you know what is surprising? The Raptors are taking more threes as a ratio of their total field goal attempts than the Indiana Pacers, Golden State Warriors, Brooklyn Nets, Denver Nuggets, OKC Thunder. These are all teams that are equipped to blitz 3-pointers. So it's not that they're not taking them. I do have an issue with the ones they're taking. I have a bigger issue with the ones they're passing up. I have an issue with who's taking. I have an issue with where they're taking them from. Are they efficient, like relative to the player that's being taken it? I have an issue with when in the offense they're taking it. There's a lot of issues with the quality of 3-pointers they're taking, but they are taking them, which is important. Okay. Let's go to the overall team. And just I sorted it by box plus minus just to give you an estimate, but we'll discuss all of it. In terms of assist percentage, obviously Dennis Schroeder leads the way with 43%. But box plus minus, there are 3 players who are currently registering a positive box plus minus right now for you. Okay, that's OG Anunoby, Scottie Barnes, Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher in his 17 minutes was God mode. He leads the team in PER. No surprises here. Leads the team in true shooting percentage. No surprises here. None of these numbers will subsist past tonight if he plays. These numbers will come back down to earth. This is absurd. But please be aware that Chris Boucher played a very, very, very freaking good game last night. Per 17 minutes, he was your best player on the court. Okay, so Darko Rajakovic, take notes. This is a good player, and you don't have a lot of good players on this team right now, apparently. In terms of the bottom, Malachi Flynn, no surprises here. Negative 14.9 box plus minus. That I didn't even know that was possible, but it is. In small sample size, it's possible. He's been negative every single year of his career. This is a new low. If he continues to play, I expect him to end the season, like if he stays in the rotation for whatever reason, I expect him to end the season -5, -4.5 to 5. That's not good, okay? Like, you're trying to aim, like with your fringy role players, you're trying to get to, let's say, -0.7. That's where you want to be with your fringe role players. This is not a fringe role player. This is an end of bench player. Probably should not be in the league. So let me be clear on this. Jeff Doughton is never, ever, ever going to put a -14.9. We talked about it with his trainer, Brian Inge. If you haven't checked out that interview, go check it out. But one of the things we talked about, if you put Jeff on the court for 5 minutes, he's going to be plus. The plus minus doesn't lie with Jeff Doughton. He's almost always plus. His teammates are plus. Grady Dick, honestly, not surprising. Rookie. I think, look, man, I looked at his tape from last night. I looked at the minutes he played. He was great last night. The fact that he has a negative 10.5 PER and hasn't made a shot yet and hasn't scored, I think this will change eventually. Jalen McDaniels, positive on the defensive end, massive negative on the offensive end. I think you have to look at Jalen's minutes, Grady's minutes, and ask how many of those minutes are they playing with guys like Precious and Malachi? Because Precious and Malachi have one thing in common. They are massive negatives on both ends right now. For all the talk about one of the top best defenders in the NBA. Look at the numbers. Precious Achua, sir, we are looking at the numbers, my friend, and you are negative 2.3 defensive box plus minus right now. And it has not looked good. You're making a lot of mistakes on defense, fouling a lot, etc. So he needs to be way better for this team to have a chance. For real. Like he's not been their worst player, but he's been like at best like their seventh. He's been at best their ninth best player, eighth best player. Like it's not, you need him to be your sixth or seventh best player for you to have a chance. All right. Something else that sticks out. Let's see. OG Anunoby probably needs to do a better job rebounding, but you really can't say much about OG right now. Like honestly, he's doing everything else for you. Not really getting to the offensive glass, but I don't think he's close enough to the basket for that to really matter for me. In terms of rebounding, I think you're losing a lot of the rebounding edge that you had last year. I think Fred is a better rebounder than people give him credit for, and Dennis Schroeder is not. And, Dennis needs to get his hands. I mean, the gang rebounding has to occur. But, in theory, you shouldn't be a bad defensive team with the personnel that you have. And this points to my first problem. Take a look at this. This is every single team sorted by defensive rebound percentage. Do you see where the Raptors are? They are 25th in the NBA. The only teams that are worse are Miami, Houston, Golden State, and LA Clippers. The top team, no surprises here, Brook Lopez, Giannis Antetokounmpo controlling the glass in Milwaukee, Joel Embiid controlling the glass in Philly. So who is this really on? I mean, who are we? Like, I have to look at the tape on who is missing their box out assignments, but offensive rebounds killed the Raptors. Okay. Now let's look at some encouraging data. Here's every single team in the NBA sorted by defensive rating. Notice something really, really cool. The Toronto Raptors are number one in the NBA in terms of defensive rating. Something you'll notice very quickly is when you start, again, two games, the teams that they're playing are the only teams that are worse than them offensively. That's the funny thing. I think they're 28th from the bottom in terms of offensive efficiency overall. And the two teams that they played were the only teams that were worse. Do you know why they were worse? Because they had to face the Raptors. The Raptors are on pace for two things, and it's very extreme. They're on pace to be one of the greatest defensive teams in NBA history. They are on pace also to be the worst half-court offense in NBA history. Neither of these things will come true by the end of the year. I'm positive. There's no chance in hell this is the worst half-court offense in NBA history, and there's almost no chance in hell that this team is even the best defensive team in the league by the year's end. However, they could be top 5 defensively, and they could be bottom 5 in terms of half-court efficiency. How do they fix it? We're at 18 minutes. I said 20 minutes. I'm a liar. I'm definitely going to end up going over 20 minutes, unfortunately, but not by much. There is a notion out there that the Raptors simply do not have the personnel for 0.5 offense. I don't mean to be facetious or, snippy with this comment, but I disagree. You have shooters. You do have shooters. Grady Dick hasn't made a single shot yet. Jill McDaniels has not made a single shot yet. These guys are not going to continue going over. What you need to look at when you're looking at the tape, and what I'm going to look at the tape tonight, is what is the quality of three-pointers that you are generating? Who is generating them? Who are the playmakers in your offense? When are these threes? Are these passes late? Are they inaccurate? Right now, I'll tell you, I haven't looked at the tape yet. I haven't. I only looked at Grady's tape yesterday. I'll tell you just from my observation watching the game, passes are off target constantly. If you've ever played basketball at any level, if somebody throws the basketball outside your shooting pocket, you're simply not going to have the same efficiency on that shot. Number one, the defense has more time to close out. Number two, you're out of rhythm. Like, you're set. Like, there's a couple of passes where when you see the pass go to the three-point shooter, you're like, that's a really, really good chance that's going in. Sometimes it doesn't go in. Sometimes you can set a guy up perfectly on his spot and it's not going to go in. They say it's a make or miss league. Old saying, but very true. Okay. Some of these things, but you have to judge every single three-pointer that this team has taken on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being Gary Trent Jr. wide open at the corner, or OG Anunoby open at the corner, or Pascal Siakam with not a defender in sight. Like, it's not going to be 100% for Siakam because he's not that great a three-point shooter, but that's about as good a look as he's going to get all night. And if it's coming off of a paint touch and it's coming right into his pocket and he's stepping into it and it wasn't what the defense was expecting and there isn't a defender in sight, well, that's a great 3. That's a great 3. And if it's out of rhythm and it's out of his pocket and it's at the wrong point and he's not set and he has to sort of stumble into it and there is a defender who's kind of really close to him or chasing him, then it's not a great 3. You don't have a lot of leeway here. You don't have Steph and Clay. You don't have Steph. You don't have Clay. You don't have the three-point shooting personnel to make such errors. So then the question becomes, okay, Rob, don't be like telling us we have a great three-point shooting team. No, I'm saying you have the ingredients to have an average three-point shooting team. That might be very hot take territory for some people out there, and some very smart people out there that I've talked to. And these are people that I respect a lot, like a lot. Like, I read their work and I appreciate them, and they're telling me I'm wrong, but I'm not buying it. You have a massive advantage every night in terms of playmaking across positions. All of your starters are playmakers, all of them. OG is underrated, but Jakob, Pascal, Scottie, and Dennis are all playmakers. You have a passing advantage. There are a lot of players, a lot of teams out there that play non-playmakers. Players like Precious Achiuwa, players like Josh Okogie. I guess I don't know enough about Josh Okogie to make that statement conclusively, but there are players out there that simply do not have a great deal of playmaking ability. The Raptors do not have this problem. So the concept then becomes, how do you create the breakdown? Well, you have to make efficient, timely, accurate passes. Now, am I suggesting that Scottie Barnes can walk down the court, chug, super slowly, and just pass to Siakam, and then Siakam's going to swing it out to OG, and he's going to swing it back to Barnes, and Barnes is going to skip pass over to Gary in the corner, and that's going to be a great offense? No, I'm not suggesting that at all. However, if Scottie runs it down the throat of the defense, gets into the paint, forces a collapse, pushes it out to OG, OG quickly reacts instead of, the delayed reaction that he's having right now, kicks it out to Siakam at the top, then I guarantee you that shot is wide open. And it required absolutely no dribble penetration. And I didn't even describe a single pick. Tell me how you're stopping that. Okay, fine. Let's say the defense recovers in time. You don't have the transition advantage, and you have to actually do this in the half court. How could you set up a half court thing? How could you create an advantage in the half court that another team will be forced to collapse 2 defenders on 1 player at some point? Okay, let's set a pick with Jakob on Dennis Schroeder's guy. Okay, force a switch. If the guy goes under, okay, fine. If you don't get the switch, at the very least, you have Jakob's an incredible screener. You have at least a gap to get a paint touch for Dennis Schroeder there. Now, if Dennis Schroeder goes right into the paint and Jakob is rolling, I think you have 3 defenders on that action, at the very least. If you do it quickly and correctly, you have 3 defenders. It's never going to be as effective as Fred and Jakob. Please understand that. It's not going to be quite as effective, but it has to be. It has to get as close as possible to that effective. Okay, fine. We don't want to do Dennis Schroeder because he's not as good a shooter and not as good a finisher, and maybe the defense is not respecting it. What about Scottie and Jakob? How often have we seen that? Have Jakob set a screen on Scottie's guy. Scottie takes it to the basket strong. Does that force a collapse? Maybe it doesn't force a collapse. And maybe that's why you're screwed, because the defense will always play Jakob for the role because there's no threat on the pass out to the big popping up. And maybe that's a personnel issue, and maybe that's a lineup issue. So I'll point to three things the Raptors could do to four things the Raptors can do to fix what they are getting wrong so that they can turn some of these close games into wins. Here are my, how the Raptors today crew before the game, there's like 4 keys to the game. Here are my 4 keys to the season. Number 1, win the rebound battle every single night. You are too big across the board, even with Dennis Schroeder on the court. Yes, Scottie's playing backup point for you a lot. I mean, he should be. And Malachi Flynn, is just compounding the issues because he's also one of the worst rebounders in the NBA. Actually, he's not that bad, but he has been, I think, pretty bad this year. In terms of on your team, I think you need Otto. I think you need Boucher. I think you need those 2 guys to play. If Precious doesn't have it, limit his touch. I know he's one of your best rebounders in theory. If you had Christian Koloko available, you would absolutely probably prioritize playing him right now just because he's not as error prone a player. The second thing I would do is lineup synergy. I would 100% change some of these lineup combinations that Darko has been going with. I would make sure that in runs with Scottie, I would have 1 secondary playmaker with him. That would be Dennis or Grady, one of those 2 guys, and 3 shooters. Give that lineup the chance to start the second. Number 3, try to stagger Scottie and Pascal's minutes as much as humanly possible. They're playing a lot together. They're kind of getting each other's way. Number 4, I would absolutely consider a shift in the starting lineup. Now, I understand that Dennis Schroeder is a positive. He's actually the only player on this team that has a positive offensive plus minus. If I'm correct, yes. He has a 0.8 positive offensive plus minus. He is the only player on this team that is technically working for you offensively. However, the reason that the things are not working super well is you have non-spacers who are spacing the court for non-shooters. It is very congested. I know the low-hanging fruit is to simply say that the Raptors don't have the shooters, or I think part of it is variance. I think you have people who are shooting abnormally bad from the field right now. Your shooters are not making shots. I don't think Gary has necessarily hit his stride right now, right? Gary Trent Jr., where is that? Team. Gary Trent Jr. is currently shooting 42.4% true shooting. Like, do you really expect that to continue for an entire year when he has almost consistently been above 50? Pascal Siakam cannot continue shooting this badly. Jakob Poeltl probably could continue shooting almost this well. I mean, maybe not 76%, but I don't see any of these numbers apart from Jakob, OG. Okay, I mean, OG is shooting like beyond his scope. So some of these numbers are going to come down, some of these numbers are going to go up, but I think overall the number will go up by a bit. And you're in these games. So crash the glass, cut out Malachi Flynn from the rotation, give Scottie a run with a secondary playmaker and 3 spacers, one of which hopefully are OG and Otto. And then the final thing is figure out who your playmakers are and get them the ball in playmaking situations. It's very simple. You have guys who are walking the ball up the court when they know, or hopefully they know at this point, that they have one of the worst half-court offenses in the NBA, and it's not going to change. I'm not suggesting the half-court offense is ever going to be top 15 in the NBA. It's probably not. You don't have a dynamic guard who can get his without, the pick. The pick is almost always being set by a non-shooter, whether that be Precious, whether that be Scottie, whether that be, unless it's OG. There's one final tip. A tip for freaking genius head coach who has been coaching for 35 years, but this is just a stab in the dark. Scottie Barnes and Gary Trent Jr., Scottie Barnes and Grady Dick. To me, these players have some very natural synergy. I think I've been talking about it for a while, but here's a lineup that I would really like to see. Scottie, Otto, OG, Gary, Grady. It's very unconventional. We haven't seen it so far. Play that lineup and tell me what happens to your offensive rating. I think it might just go through the roof. Otto spacing out as a screener, popping up above the break, right? Gary and OG filling up the corners, maybe a pin down for Grady to come off a screen and finally get a good look. I don't like the looks that Grady has necessarily gotten, but he's getting himself open better than almost anyone on this team. I know it's hard to defend a player who is bottom of the team in every single statistical category right now, but I've seen enough in 2 games. I mean, he played 2 minutes in the first game, and I was not unimpressed with anything that he did. And again, he impressed me yesterday despite scoring 0 points. Please understand, my draft day reaction to Grady Dick was me putting my head down and trying to gather my thoughts. I am not a Grady Dick fanboy, but I'm a basketball fanboy. And I'm telling you that this guy is better than the minutes and opportunity he's gotten so far. I understand he's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. Live with it. He's doing something on the basketball court, and defenses are reacting to him. And this is very important too, because you put pressures on the corner and defenses are not reacting to it. So take the freaking shots that the offense is generating for you. Be crisper on your passes. Be more mindful of your box out assignments. Stop playing lineups that don't make sense. And I have a feeling that this team has it in them to be a top 5 defense and a 14th to 18th offense. And that is a recipe for about 50 wins or 48 wins. Do it. All right. I will see you guys after the game tonight. I'm going to take a quick look at some of these comments. I'm really sorry that this has gone longer than I said it would. I really wanted to condense this, but apparently I just love the sound of my own voice and I just couldn't stop talking. I apologize. Okay, let me just check here. One sec. All right. Dun. This is Scottie's team. Siakam used to hug his corner. May I just say that I am really, really proud of this fan base. I've been talking about it a lot on Twitter, but like I looked at some of the comments that y'all left after the presser. It's not just you people, but I've seen a lot of those names in this community as well. Thank you so much, man. Scottie clearly beat himself up a lot after the loss yesterday, but I mean, I'm glad that you guys are recognizing that is a very solid leadership trait. Absolutely agreed. They need to give Dick more minutes. Bro, please do not get me to start a free Dick movement. That's gonna get me banned for sure. Okay. Yeah. I mean, but if 2 teams that you've played in a row have shit the bed and neither team is necessarily terrible offensively, then I think it's possible that you are doing something very well on defense as well. I mean, the Raptors are trying very hard and they're going to have to continue playing very hard. Gregory saying, I dreamt that we obtained Maxey for Siakam. Contracts don't make sense unless you take back Tobias Harris, number 1. Number 2, that's never going to happen. I promise you that will never happen. Daryl Morey is not an idiot. May not be my favorite person in the world, but he's not stupid. Okay. Precious needs. Okay. Am I seeing anything that needs to be pinned right now? Sheridan Forbes. Thank you always for your hit the like button. Like, I love this. Thank you so much. Like, every single time you post this, I'm just like, hey, man, like, this is such a nice thing for someone to continue doing. Thank you so much. In my opinion, it's time to trade for Harden. His value is low. Whew. All right. The story of Harden is very interesting because I don't know if y'all have heard it, but it was reported by Chris Haynes. So James Harden was away from the team for 10 days and he reported to the facility and he took it as a suggestion that, hey, James, like, you're not in condition. You've been away from the team. We need you to go through practice. He goes through practice. He takes it as a suggestion that he should not travel with the team. So he shows up to the airport and at the airport, they stop him from boarding the plane. Nick Nurse and several others basically tell him, hey, Like, we don't know how you've been. We need you to go and work. And he's continuing to work out. So this is a very interesting situation across the league, right? With the new rules about stars having to show up to games and stuff. So I don't know. I've never felt that James Harden's a bad person. I refuse to believe it. Heard, you hear a lot of things about people, like you get a gauge for who people are in different situations. You get a gauge for how he was in Houston with the community, with whatever, with his teammates. You get a gauge for this. I don't think his teammates hate him. And I certainly do not dislike him. So yeah, he would unlock your half court offense. I don't think he would crater your defense any more than Dennis, or he's probably a worse defender than Dennis, but he's not a worse defender than Gary Trent Jr. That's for sure. So, I don't know. And he has a lot to prove right now. And he's in a contract year. So yeah, James Harden could unlock like a crazy historical. Is it a hot take to say that you have the types of defenders that if you brought in an offensive player like James Harden, it might be very similar to bringing in Kawhi? That's probably a hot take, right? Depending on what you gave up. If you could get James Harden for role players and you kept Siakam and Barnes and Schroeder somehow, I mean, even if you had to dump Jakob in the deal, I think you probably enter into the top half of the East if things work out with him. Would he respect Darko Rajakovic? I don't see why not. Every player seems to love him a lot. Is he loving Nick Nurse so far? No, probably not. Okay. Agreed. All right, guys. Daniel, Siakam hate is not justified. I agree. Should not be the number one option anymore, but you only miss what you have when it's gone. Hey, man, like I'm with you on some level. I'm with you. Like, I think Pascal Siakam is way, way, way better than the player we've seen so far, right? Like, I do believe that. Please understand, I'm on the record here. Hand up, swear to God, hope to die. Not being facetious, not being, disingenuous. I think Pascal Siakam is a much better player than he has played so far. He's struggling with his offense just like everybody else is. He's struggling to make quick decisions. He's struggling to make accurate plays, passes. He's struggling with his new role. He's struggling with lower usage. He's a rhythm player. He likes the ball in his hands. He likes to be able to create in the middle of the floor. Doesn't have anyone to pass to who's wide open. He's not creating the advantage. I wonder if he's lost a step athletically. I wonder if it's because there's always someone in the paint. I wonder if it's because we just played two very big teams that are actually pretty decent defensively. I wonder if the scouting report has caught up on him. I wonder if it's basically him just trying to figure this offense out. I wonder if it's because he's disinterested. I don't know. But one thing is for freaking sure. If you were to trade him right now to the Atlanta Hawks or the LA Clippers or one of these other teams, you would probably see a very big season from him. I have no doubt. What I have questions about is whether that can happen in this offense and whether that can happen here. All right. FA saying, in addition to the offensive foul call, last 2 minutes report says referees missed a travel by DeMar DeRozan prior to him being fouled by Chris Boucher. Fair enough, man. I completely agree. This last night was not a well officiated game at all. I hope that no one is suggesting that this should be in the refereeing Hall of Fame. That being said, refs did not allow the Bulls to go on a 41-9 run. You did that to yourself with bad lineups, bad lineup optimization, terrible offense, terrible passing. This concept of 0.5 basketball not being able to work without shooters, here's my final take on this. You can make a 0.5 offense work very well if you have 3 really good decision makers and 2 really good off-ball shooters, movement shooters. Okay. So 3 really good decision makers who know where to be on the basketball court and know how to read and react properly to things. So imagine Draymond. I mean, you would imagine if you need all players to be able to shoot in a 0.5 offense for it to work, you would imagine an offense with Draymond Green and Andrew Bogut back in the day, or Draymond Green and Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala, or Draymond Green and Kevon Looney. And, like, you would imagine these offenses would struggle so much. And you could say, yeah, you don't have Steph, you don't have his gravity. But I mean, gosh, Draymond is like 20-something% three-point shooter. Kevon Looney is a non-three-point shooter. You're still making it work. You can make it work, right? The Sacramento Kings last year, I mean, they played centers who don't shoot. They played JaVale McGee this year. They're playing Domantas Sabonis, not exactly a great three-point shooter. You can make it work. You need to, again, factor in the critical mass argument of you need sufficient amount of shooting, you need a sufficient amount of rebounding, you need a sufficient amount of playmaking. The Raptors have an overabundance of playmaking. I don't understand why these playmakers are making such bad plays, such bad reads on the basketball. Okay. Yo, who should I bet on tonight? Manda and Raptors or Sixers? I don't know. I cannot give you betting advice in clear conscience. I know who I'm betting on, and that is for me to know. I don't run a betting channel. I apologize. I just don't want to be. Number one, I don't want to be responsible for encouraging gambling. Number two, I do not want to be responsible for you betting something and losing. All right, take care, guys. Have a good one. Make sure to hit like on your way out with this video, and I will definitely see y'all tonight after the game. Hopefully, fingers crossed, this is a win. I really, really want Nick Nurse to eat crow, bro. I really do. I know it's petty, but I want him to eat a loss. I want to see his face. I want to see, like right down the line. I want to see him with his mouth open, looking, all stunned. I want all the memes tonight. I'm being petty for sure. I want to see Joel Embiid like I don't know, like doing the airplane. Then I want to see him get dunked on by Scottie Barnes. I want it all. Like I'm here for tonight. I'm here. I'm here for tonight. Like last night, it was like, okay, a little bit of revenge because, you face them in the play-in. They ended. It didn't feel like vengeance. Tonight feels like vengeance. And I really hope they have OG Anunoby. All right. Take care, guys. Have a good one.